Two absent tonight. Jill Cox is not here, and Linda Vrabel is not here. And if y'all will join with me in invocation. Heavenly Father, just be with us tonight as we make decisions for the city and help us make the correct ones for the future of this city, and be with us throughout the remainder of this evening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public hearing comments and presentations. If anybody would like to say anything or talk about the public hearing for the proposed subdivision annexation. Come on up to the mic.
Hi, I'm Debbie Todd, and I had actually meant to write down something, but you know how that goes, that didn't happen. I know there's nothing that can be done about this, and I know that that y'all can't decide anything, but I just wanted to make this aware to y'all and to the public, and I wanted it to be on public record. We in Granger are quite used to driving how we like to drive in Granger. We like to drive slowly past Big B's and stop maybe and see what's for lunch. We like to pull in coming one direction, back out and go the other direction, kind of like a U-turn. We like to just drive like we've lived in Granger our whole lives and we know what we're doing. We also do the same thing over on the other side near the post office. We want to make a U-E in Granger, we make a U-E. With this new subdivision coming in, we're going to have a lot of heavy traffic, big trucks, a lot of congestion. And I just want us to maybe make the public aware, we're not going to be able to do it to everybody, that we are going to have some high traffic areas and big heavy trucks and big construction vehicles. And maybe warn the people that they need to be a little more cautious in their driving habits. I can just see something coming up with somebody not being aware and pulling out and backing into one of these vehicles, and it's just a concern of mine. Just thank you for listening. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. While we're waiting for time to pass, may I address?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Apologies.
I just wanted to say that because there's not a lot of angry pitchforks and, hatchet knives coming our direction, I personally want to take that as a positive sign. I feel like if there were a lot of people who weren't interested in this annexation, they would be here tonight voicing their opinion. So I personally am going to look at this as a positive thing. We've tried very hard to get the word out, and no one is showing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the last meeting we had quite a few, and I hope we've gotten the word out, and so I think the transparency has helped a lot. So as long as we're transparent with everything, I think the community will be pretty happy with it. So just so y'all know, we posted the meeting at 6 for the hearing, and our regular meeting starts at 6:30. We just want to give that time for people to show up and speak about the subdivision. Well, so this is going to be an exciting 30 minutes.
Well, I can address Bob. Mr.
If you
Shelton.
would like to speak, come on up.
Oh, good, great.
Don't necessarily need to speak. I just have a question. It's basically going along with what Debbie just said. Hi, I'm Crystal Dirk. Everybody knows me. I'm loud. Basically, like the street we have now, we know it's trash. The road's caving in. It's getting narrower and narrower. With all those trucks, who's going to pave that road once we get started? Because it's going to get worse. Because we know there's a gentleman that parks his 18-wheeler on there, and it digs into that side of the road every time he backs into his house. Who's going to keep that road up to date for that section while they're building? Because I know we've had out down the street, we've had a bunch of Champion site prep trucks driving that road lately, because you have a house coming up, and they're tearing it up.
Mayor, do you want me to address that question?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So it is a city road. It's inside city limits. So whoever uses it, however, so let me put it this way. If there was a subdivision further outside of town, not this one, let's say this didn't exist, but they were using heavy equipment and trucks to go down that particular road to get to where they wanted to be, it would be the city's responsibility to fix it. Whether that subdivision is going right there or a mile out of town, that's a city road. So yes, it's the city's responsibility. We would, in the future, probably look at addressing this with impact fees, utility impact fees. If there's going to be a big impact on our rate because of a subdivision, or our taxation because of a subdivision, well, then we wouldn't want to pass that on to the original residents. I don't think we're going to see that in this case. So we're not addressing the subject of impact fees. But if that's something that you want brought up, we can put that up.
Well, no, I just worry about the road, because it's already wearing down, just with the tractors and the regular day-to-day traffic on there, it's getting narrower and narrower. And I know everybody's already voiced their opinion about the people parking on the road, that's where they have to park, they have no driveway. So, I mean, just with the road narrowing as it is now, and we've had more 18-wheelers up and down that road the past couple of weeks, it's gonna get worse.
Well, I'm not going to ask him to speak, but, you know, our Public Works Director and I and our engineer, Scott Murr, have been having these discussions about how we're going to take care of the infrastructure. The biggest thing that we're going to have to deal with first is our collection system and the collection of that waste from that area. We don't want to repair that road, even though it's going to get tore up and people are going to have to suffer through it. We don't want to repave that road when then we have to tear it up again to cut into it to lay new pipes. So our goal is to address the pipe system first. And while it's being torn up, why fix it? Wait till all the construction's done and then we make it all brand new. But that's something we can talk about.
At least maintain potholes,
Can-
because they do get pretty bad. The neighbor at the end of the street actually put concrete in them several times, showing me that, so we don't dump our cars in the potholes at the end of the road.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Andrew mentioned. Years ago, and this kind of expanding on what you said, Andrew, years ago, it was pretty common practice to run water lines and sewer lines and all those lines in your road. And so and it's throughout our town. I mean, it's not just that road. And we slowly have been doing, like Lamb Street, they moved some of the utilities over. Slowly, we're having to move all utilities out of it. And part of that sets us up for a couple of things. One is to go in and redo the roads. The other thing is we have to get those utilities out of it if we ever want to start doing stormwater drainage on the side of the roads too. So it's not a simple thing. And all of this system is so old that we're kind of picking, okay, let's move these out. And now that we've got them out of it, we've got one road closer. But the traffic on that road is going to vastly impact in the short term.
It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie to you.
I wish they had like 25
Yeah.
years, and you see them with trucks, it's gonna get worse.
And you're right, but
Because
then,
they're so heavy, hauling all the gravel and the roads that
but
they're
the,
gonna make ruts.
but the good news is then it makes it an important road, right? It makes it a road that we need to fix, as opposed to it slowly deteriorating over the next 5 years. Then we might look at that sooner than later. You see what I'm saying? It accelerates the improvement. These roads are not going to be cheap, you know. And part of the reason why we're happy from a city perspective is for the subdivision is it helps increase our revenue. That helps us. It increases our money that we can borrow against. So like if you have a household income of $30,000, banks are only going to let you have this much. But if you have a household income of $100,000, you get more. So it also keeps the debt service low. So when and if we have to do these kind of loans, because some of it is going to have to be by loan. I mean, we're going to try for as many grants as we absolutely possibly can get to reduce the costs. But sometimes we're just not going to get them, and sometimes we're going to have to do the work, and it's going to have to be in the form of debt service. say anything? Please.
First, again, I want to thank y'all for being so easy to work with. Not easy like he's easy, but knowledgeable and responsive and with forethought and planning. I really do appreciate that because I work with bigger cities that we don't have that kind of responsiveness, so we really appreciate that. Regarding the road, you are so right. That can be a problem. I don't know what's been going on that has brought some semis. One of the things that Andrew and I had spoken about is once development starts, figuring out the best route and requiring those trucks to come down through those routes. I don't know what that's going to be yet. Also, we're going to be a phased development, so we'll try to get as much done as far as the horizontals, but as far as increasing from residential, that'll come a little bit slower. And hopefully, the increase in the property tax going to the city will help fund any necessary fixes that need to happen to the road. The next thing I wanted to mention was the transparency. I think you had mentioned that, or somebody had mentioned that, and that's been really exciting here, that we can be open with the plan, get y'all's feedback. We took information feedback from your planning and zoning director, and it was very helpful. Submitted that to the land planners. They're working with the new size roads and making sure that we've got everything to your specifications exactly the way you want it. We haven't received that back yet, which is no surprise because these things, every land planner and surveyor, appraiser, they're all just swamped right now with all the growth in the area. But we expect it soon, like in a week, maybe two. So that'll be interesting. And we're gonna show mixed lots, we're gonna show the wider road per his specifications, the sidewalks, so it'll be a prettier, more detailed picture for y'all.
Wonderful.
Did anyone else have any questions for me?
I know a few people might have just shown up. We're in the public hearing, so if anybody would like to come up and ask a question, anything at all, this is Marcy Cannon with the developers. And so if, she's here to answer questions, but if y'all have any questions at all, if you just want to throw them out here, that's what the public hearing is for.
Or comments.
Or-
Doesn't
yeah.
have to just be questions.
When is it projected to start?
If I can get you a favor, if you can come up to the microphone and just say your name so we have it on the public record. Oh, you're all right. We appreciate you coming out.
Yes, my name's Jeff Allen, and I've been in Granger since 2013. And, I live on Alligator Road where this is happening. It's about a quarter mile from my house. So I just found out about this from my uncle, and I thought I'd stop by, so that's why I'm here. So, but that's it. When's it going to start?
Well, we're hoping we can share the mic. We're hoping that soon as we get the annexation, which is in April 9th, then we'll be able to start moving forward on subdivision, zoning, all the other steps required. That typically, you guys are moving so fast, we can't keep up with y'all. Y'all are very fast. So typically it's 6 months to get all of the entitlements done, and then we can start.
Is there any literature on this?
Well, we had a land plan that we had shown, and we've made quite a few changes to it based on everyone's comments. As soon as that comes back, it'll be available. And
At that point, we're basically, so we have steps that we follow and dates and timelines in between, and the state makes the rules, they don't want to rush too fast. Now, because we were approached by the developer and the landowner for annexation, it cuts some of those rules off the table. So we have fewer rules to follow and we can move faster. So bigger cities have different timelines. But the second plat that she's going to show us is actually what she's going to consider the final plat.
Yes.
So at that point, if planning and zoning, they should have a hearing about, you can come and look at the designs and make your comments then. If planning and zoning committee feels like what's here is sufficient and would recommend this to the council, then we bring it to another council meeting, which would probably be in May. We could also do it at the April meeting if we wanted to move that fast, but there's a lot of things that have to happen. So I'm thinking it's going to be at the May council meeting. So we could get her subdivision plats approved, then we would move forward with the dedication and all of that mess. So that would then be filed with the county attorney, and I would put my signature, and the mayor would sign, and there would be an engineering stamp and all of the seals that go with it. Once that's filed, it would probably be about mid to late May, and then they could start as early as June, yeah, if they wanted to.
Typically on the annexation, we don't submit land plans because everybody's a designer, right? Everybody knows what, so typically when you see a development come forward, they do like a bubble map, which says big bubble, we want houses here, and they don't give you any details. But because we were very concerned about making sure this was transparent to the community, we wanted the community buy-in, we spent that money in engineering and land planning up front. That's why now we're going to be able to move a little faster.
All right, thanks. Nice to meet you.
But Marcy, you said
I'm gonna sit down.
not about
Oh,
6 to
thank
9
you.
months before you turn dirt.
That's typically the case when we start. And when did we start annexation? We're like a month and a half into
Right,
it.
you came to us, was it it was right before the January council meeting.
Okay.
So I was able to get you in on January for the petition.
Yes.
They accepted your petition. So then we put you in in February to go ahead and start moving forward with the acceptance. The petitions triggers the city, the actions on the admin side. Those actions would be the service plan for the annexation proposal, and there was one other thing that we had to offer you that you declined. It's the offer of non-annexation and, for property taxes. But I don't know why the state decided that for petitioners coming to the city, we still had to provide that. So we did. There's some waiting period. We don't want anybody to have buyer's remorse. So we waited until February. February, it was decided that we would go ahead and hold public hearings, and this is the second of the 2 that are required. Once we have this public hearing tonight, if the city council feels positive about the annexation, then at the April meeting, it's expected, because there's little controversy at this point, that it would be passed, but don't put words in my mouth, okay? Once that happens, meanwhile, all of the steps that go into the subdivision planning can also occur simultaneously. So we're doing 2 tracks, so 2 different timelines that we have to keep up with. We're already halfway through the subdivision tract. I mean, we've already had our initial meeting with what we consider planning and zoning. That was the first preliminary meeting. There will be another hearing on what you're going to consider your final.
Yes.
So the final is going to be submitted to planning and zoning. They'll have a hearing on that. If that goes well and planning and zoning doesn't make any changes to your plat, then that will then come before city council. So if there's a hearing between now and April the 9th at the next city council meeting, theoretically, planning and zoning can put that to the city council for approval at that time. So you could also get your annexation and your subdivision plat design in one night, if you guys want to move that fast. If you're capable of moving that
Right.
fast.
But part of the concern with the way these work, most developers won't spend more than they absolutely have to until annexation and zoning. Because until we get the zoning, we don't know that we can do what we want to do. Because the engineering fees for this are going to probably be honestly close to $200,000. So obviously, we don't want to start that until we have approval from the city that, yes, we can do this, and generally speaking, it's going to look like this. We went ahead and jumped forward and got very specific with our land plan. We've racked up a few, 20, 30 engineering hours so far to make sure with the roads and the setbacks that the land plan looks correct. But once we get the annexation and we feel comfortable enough we can get the subdivision and zoning, we're gonna be starting to spend those dollars. So, and the developer's very confident right now, happy and confident.
Mark, will you come up to the microphone? Sorry, just so we get it on the official record.
I can bring it to you.
My question is simple. Even if you didn't get annexed, are you still going to build here? Would you still plan on building here?
Yes, but it would probably be a different product, because then we wouldn't have water and wastewater service.
That's okay. I just wanted to know you're coming regardless.
Oh, yes, the
So-
land has been purchased.
Okay. Just want to make sure clear that. Because you keep saying like, well, we don't want to invest money if you don't want to do it. It's
Oh,
like,
no, we've
I want to make
already
sure you're
invested.
in one way or the other.
Oh, yeah. The land has been purchased, probably over $20,000-$30,000 has already been spent to get us this far. We are 100% committed. We want to be part of the community. We want to be able to get the water and wastewater. If you don't get that, then we have to talk about, are we doing septic, are we doing wells? We don't want any of that. So, yeah, we are 100% committed.
That was my question.
Thank you, Mark.
And a lot of this, there's not a lot of people here tonight, but for the benefit of YouTubers, people who can't make tonight's meeting, the questions and answers that we're kind of trying to hit on before people have a chance to ask the question,
Sure.
they'll have the benefit of hearing it on YouTube.
And I apologize for not making it last minute anyway, emergency. I meant to start with that, so I apologize. Good. Uh-oh.
My sewer line. Okay, so before they turn dirt physically in that property, we are moving all utilities,
No.
because my sewer line is this far in the ground and it runs right through the middle of her property.
Does it run,
It's city sewer.
does it run across the street or does it run
It
down?
goes straight through the field this way and then crosses Alligator to the dump hole.
Okay, so why don't you come to City Hall and show me, and we'll see what we need to do for you.
Yeah, that might not be in our plat, so we might not know. what
Yeah,
it is.
that,
So that might be helpful to know,
yeah.
so.
Yes, very
Out
old.
there trying to find it with a stick.
Yes.
Yeah,
We find it with smoke.
Because, I mean, they've literally mowed it over with the tractor many a time in the middle of the field. You're like,
Yes. We will be bringing a bigger land under, correct?
Mhm.
so, but before y'all do all of this
Yeah.
though, we gotta
Sure.
move our sewer line out of the way, and who is funding that? Because that's not on my property.
Come see me.
I can't
Yeah.
take off work, I would love to.
Okay, okay.
Can we email?
Sure, we can, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay?
thank you.
But I would love to see where that line is,
Mm,
obviously. Yeah, I think
yeah.
I don't think it's on any of the surveys anywhere, so.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's only been there for about 67, 77 years. Mr. Wilcox probably ran it himself.
Were there any questions maybe from last time that didn't get addressed that you would like me to address, or?
Last time, it was just, people were wanting to see the map.
Yes.
They're wanting to see the location. It was just, they were just wanting information, to be honest. I don't feel, unless I'm forgetting something, maybe y'all can remind me, but I think it was mostly just wanting to put eyes on where it was going to be located. I'm drawing a blank.
They were interested in the size of the lots and the styles of the houses.
Yes.
Very
One
interested.
One gentleman
And
that
flooding.
lives next, does he live south? Is that Mr.?
Who,
Mr.
River?
Roba.
he has
His
property
property.
north of there, I believe, doesn't he?
And east, north and east.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He made the comment, the only comment that came up was apparently the water comes down that back hill and actually floods farther up into the subdivision. I'm sorry, what, sir? It does flood? Okay.
Further in it does.
So he just made the comment that the park area actually gets quite a lot of rain when we have a large rain event.
How often does that occur?
Did he say 20 or 30 years? I'm sorry.
It's been like twice in the past 2 years that it's gotten to where we can see it from our house.
Okay.
Yeah, it flooded my place so bad, I looked out on the porch, and my truck was moving. So it's a manufactured home, so it's up on a deck. I walk down, and I'm 6'2" for one, and the water's up to my knees. That's how bad it is.
And,
So is there gonna be runoff from?
Oh, yeah.
well,
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm very concerned for your dwelling, just heard before anything, but, are you in the floodplain right now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
He's at the corner, so when you
So-
come up towards our house, he's on the corner right there.
what, Jeff, I forgot your last name. What is it? Alan. One of the things that was discussed at the last meeting with our engineer, when you do a development like this, you have to make sure that the runoff from that development does not impact the people. So they're going to have to, I'm going to use these terms and I may use, they're going to have to either do a detention or retention system to make sure that they're not adding more water coming off the subdivision into the waterways than is currently going off of it. That will be once they figure out, okay, we're gonna have this wide of roads, we're gonna have this many subdivisions, this much impervious soil, we're gonna have some type of a system to hold this much water for a, did he say 100-year or 50-year flood?
I believe he said 100.
100, I
might-
believe.
Don't hold me on that, but I think he said 100-year flood is what they gear those retention and detention ponds around. So theoretically, once the engineers get done doing their numbers, there should not be additional runoff occurring downstream.
And the roads are gonna be widened, I'm assuming?
The roads, we're getting more access. So we will have the ability to widen the road eventually, but probably at this time they will not be. So it.
May I clarify that?
Yeah, go ahead.
To add to what he said, so as the developer, they're giving us a certain amount of right-of-way from their land, but just that piece of property. In order for us to widen that road sufficiently, we would have to acquire right-of-way from all the other property owners up and down, and that might include you. So we would have to, you would either have to donate it or we'd have to buy it away from you. If it got to the point where, and this is where people don't like cities and states and counties, it's called eminent domain. For the good and welfare of the people that live there, they can come and say, well, here's a fair market value for that piece of land. Here's your money, buy. It's not a nice thing. So they're being very kind in the beginning, saying, okay, well, whatever might happen in the future, here's your right-of-way so that you don't have to deal with us. We're done. It helps them too, so they're not putting houses in for future owners that might potentially have to give up right-of-way.
It would cost, if we built homes too close to what might the future be a wider road, it would require that the city go through eminent domain and purchase those homes. That's a burden on the taxpayer that we don't want to bring. Also, on the other side of the road, there are already several structures that have been encroaching the
Yeah.
right-of-way already. And again, just to show good faith and good neighbors, instead of saying, no, we're only going to donate from the center line out, we said, go ahead and move it all on our property, so that they wouldn't have to redo structures and et cetera. As far as I mentioned the road width, that was in regards to within the development, to make room for any parking or sidewalks, et cetera. Also, the TCEQ, help me, Texas.
Commission on Environmental Quality.
There you go.
There we go. They require by Texas state law that whatever water is currently being run off of a given property, that flow rate cannot increase after development, which goes to his comment about a detention, retention pond. I believe we're close to 9 acres of this property is in the floodplain, and so that's part, again, of all the engineering dollars to figure out how do we slope the roads, how do we keep it in there? You know, is that now a feature? All of that will happen when we start. But by law, you are not allowed to increase the flow. Does it happen? Yes, if your neighbor's doing it, check. But, and if that's the case, you call TCEQ. And they come out and they monitor that and look at that, but yes.
When the road widens, it may not be as wide all the way down. There may be a part of it that expands and has a turning lane in it, and then it goes back down to a smaller bit. So there's uncertainty at this moment as to how much of it will be wide enough to accommodate a turning lane. Some of it just may get a new fresh shoulder, you know, depending on what the engineers determine.
But I will say this, we like your involvement. And sometimes we hear negative comments, but that's okay. That's why we're here, to help fix those things. And if they're a problem, that's why we come to these meetings. So encourage your neighbors, encourage the people that you think might be interested. There's ways to get involved. I mean, you could volunteer for the Planning and Zoning Committee, plug. But it's good that you showed up, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's 6:30 now, so if we don't have any more questions, we're going to go ahead and move on to the agenda, the regular meeting. And let's start with the announcements of A, CDBG grant, BS.
Did anybody sign up for this portion?
Oh, has anybody signed up for this portion? Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
No, you're correct. I didn't even think to ask. All right, thank you so much, Bob. CDBG grant update, BSP engineers. And I don't think Scott's here, so I guess nothing more beyond the report.
Mayor?
Do you know if he's coming tonight?
No, he said he is not able to make it, but I will say this, the most important thing is the work has been completed that we've set out to do. Things are on progress for the next lift station that we'll be putting next to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
I think most of what we need to talk about when it comes to CDBG will be in what our next project is going to
The
be.
next one? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Let's go ahead and move on to fire department report for March 2018, sorry.
February.
No, it isn't. You're
For
right. Okay.
February, we had 6 medical assist calls. There were 3 automobile collisions, 2 outside fires. There was 1 outside fire mutual aid, 1 structure fire mutual aid, for a total of 13 calls. February pretty much was an uneventful month based on previous recent months also. The department is still looking for new members. If anybody is interested in joining, please get with James Cervenka or one of the fire department members, and they'll get you an application. That pretty much wraps it up, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the utility department report for February 2018.
Okay, this actually happened in March, but it's such good news, I don't want to wait till next month to share it. Friday, March the 9th, the Pecan Street Bridge was open for public use. It's been a long time coming, and I've talked to the residents in that area, and they are just extremely overwhelmed and happy. The school people are happy because it's lessened up the traffic. It's just a really good thing. Okay, and as for the February report, there were 3 water leaks that were repaired. They replaced 1 meter box. They installed 2 curb stop valves. There were 15 water disconnects with 10 water reconnects. The monthly meter readings were done, and they had to do 20 rereads. They removed old water line from the water plant and did the monthly required flushings. In the sewer department, they ran 2 sewer lines. They cut up the old sewer line from the Pecan Street Bridge and hauled off all the debris, and they worked on the new lift station line. Other stuff they did, they hauled all the scrap off, and that went to Holland, and we recapped a little money there for recycling. The mowing is all on schedule, and the cemetery is looking good. And they are working right now on building the storage unit that is air-conditioned for the storage units, and it will take all of the City Hall records so we can save some money on renting a unit, which is a good thing. It's going to be on our property, and it's literally double locked because it's in an inside building, so it's very secure. And they did 2 locate lines.
Just one question. How did Frank, did they get the pump replaced?
Do what?
Did the pump get replaced at the,
Well, you do realize that's March.
okay, I'll leave it alone then. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. So, Police Department report for February 2018.
Other than what I've already written on here, I did want to give a kind of a further explanation on item number 9. Sergeant Thomas and I are going to be the very first participant in a program that Sheriff Chody has enacted in this county to translate the mental health officer training out into the other agencies in this county. We are the first police department to take advantage of this opportunity. We will be starting this week. Sergeant Thomas will be riding out for 3 days, 12 hours a day, with the mental health officer on the night shift. I will be doing it the 30th, the 31st, and April the 1st. We will also be attending a 40-hour class that's going to be held in the near future at the Williamson County Sheriff's Academy for the mental health officer certification. This is going to help our community. It's something that we've needed for a long time. We don't have the resources to do everything the Sheriff's Office does do. Sheriff Chody is not withdrawing services from us. He just feels it's important that this type of training become more prevalent with other people.
Thank you. That's a very big help.
It's so that he can deal with me.
Is 40 hours enough?
I'm thinking about trying to get that dart rifle back and some value.
Yeah. Economic Development Report for February 2018.
Good evening, council. I am still seeking private funds for the historic preservation of the old city hall. Still looking around. They tend to be small dollar funds, so we try to find something that's in between, something a little larger. We will be allowed to submit another application for grant funds from the Texas Historical Commission in December. So they will be opening another round. I don't know if that means they'll still run a next year's round in January, or if we're just going to be off a cycle for a while. I did happen to be over by the City Hall the other day when I caught the Taylor Press taking pictures of the building. And I stopped and I talked to them, and they were running an article, and they asked me about the funding and how it was going, and I shook my finger at them and said, your church project in Taylor is hurting my City Hall, back off. Because it is a geographical thing. But they were very enthusiastic and very complimentary. They were interested in the movie that was shot there, and they took several shots of our building, apparently to run in a story of the Taylor Press. So very happy with that. Every little bit of that helps. The Texas Park Plan, Texas Parks and Wildlife Park Plan grant, still working on that. It's due October 1st. I'm really, really thrilled, and I've done a lot of photo documentation on the CDBG projects around town, specifically the Pecan Street Bridge, because as I stated before, all of our CDBG projects and properties that we acquire, no matter how we acquire them, the actual value of them counts as our share towards each round of funding on a parks project. So it's a 50-50 match. We've basically already paid for with a lot of the work that's been done around town and pieces of property that have been given to the city. The Texas Main Street program, I continue to work on that. I just started working out the budget. That application is extremely detailed. So we're making sure we have all of it correct in a timely fashion, nothing has changed. I did notice in it that many aspects of the program offer opportunities for us to put together, the Main Street program put together events and types of projects with the MDD. And I did attend an MDD meeting this past week, so I'm really looking forward to being able to work with them as, once we become a Main Street city, and work with them on various economic and development programs. I'm putting together, as an economic developer, I'm now putting together a retail questionnaire. I want to get some feedback from the businesses that are in town, real basic stuff, but it's stuff that we don't have regarding the city. Information about what they think would help, what we could do in the city that would help their businesses be more productive, what we could do that would help them be more marketable. How do they see the city's role in their economic growth and development, and just basic business health and well-being? So I hope to get that out to them in the next couple of weeks. Citywide garage sale and the citywide cleanup, yes, that is an economic development issue. It's one of the things I love about this town, the fact that you do that twice a year. And we got lots to clean up, folks, okay? We've started actually inventorying how many houses and where they are in town that are actually sitting empty, because we need to address that, but I have to know where they are first. So the cleanup is really important. I've started a project with people that need to work off community service hours so they can get out and help folks who can't afford to or don't have the physical mobility to clean up their own property. I can help them find somebody who needs the hours and can go out and do it. And of course, the citywide garage sale this year, I really want to try and market it outside the area so we can draw people in from outside of the community to see what kind of great junk we have and how they might like to make it theirs. Any questions?
One comment, you might, on the retail questionnaire, you may work with the chamber.
Yes.
And it may reduce some of your burden on having to do all the.
Oh, definitely.
Work on it where they can actually help you, and it may be a good foundation between city, chamber, and MDD.
Yes, definitely. Excellent idea. Anybody else?
All right.
Thank you.
You so much, Catherine. City Administrator report for February 2018.
Oh, wait, that's me.
Yes.
My turn. We had a fun month in February. We're basically tearing everything up. We tore the roof off. We tore the ceiling down. We tore up boxes. It's been a mess. Making room for Catherine, we had to make sure that the building was safe, secure. One of the things that has been happening for a long time was there was infiltration of rain, and you've all heard about this. The roof was leaking and it was damaged. We managed to get our insurance company to pay for it. That gave us the impetus to move forward with some of the internal repairs, and it's been a headache. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry. You don't know how much trouble that has caused us and interference with our normal routine, but the ultimate good will come out of this. We're still dealing with some of the phone transition. ZocNet needs to come out and replace some boxes that they brought for our fax lines to work properly. We've also done a lot of troubleshooting on our network because we use a highly secured firewall, probably top of the line. So we had to go in and tweak, and I would not let ZocNet touch our firewall. So I pretty much did it all for them as they needed it. So that took some time too. We also spent a lot of time getting the newsletter together, thanks to Catherine and Janine and everybody that participated. There's a lot that goes into that. We did want to increase the professionalism, so we had that published, printed at Staples. It increased the cost a little bit, but we had a really good idea. One of our residents, Justin Griffith, was helping us fold, and we were talking about mailing it, and he says, well, why can't you just put this on the table at the post office where everybody goes? And for everybody else, they can just come to City Hall. And I looked at Janine and I said, well, what do you think? And she said, well, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea. So we called and they said, absolutely, put it out there. So pass the word around. We want to make sure this gets to as many people as possible. We want it talked about. We want it talked about on Facebook. As I've always said, over the past 2 years, the more involvement we have, the better, even if it's positive. It doesn't have to be negative. Just more people involved is a good thing. So we're real proud of that. our annual audit. So our auditor calls me and says, is there any way that I can get you to draft a letter authorizing your prior auditor to discuss that audit? I said, yes, of course, and we took care of that business. I managed to talk to Don Allman about it, and he said that he would be willing to share information. I can only assume that right now they're discussing things. What they're discussing, I don't know. And typically, they keep us out of the loop until they're ready to make their presentation unless they have questions. So right now, they're going through all of the documentation and combing through that. Then they'll come out and spend a day or two with us in the office and spot check and look for different records to see if we have the ability to pull it out. So we're still in that process. I wish it was done, but we're still there. Because of that, I have real hesitation to go forward with the conversion of our software. The reason is until I get final audited numbers from this auditor, I don't want to move that data, any bad data, into the new system. So we're going to wait until we get that finished. Our TCQ system inspection, we're going to talk about this more next meeting. But I want to say a very, very good thank you to Frank for putting up with it, suffering through it. We learned a lot. What we learned is we're doing a very good job. It was not as bad as we thought it was going to be, so I'm very happy about that. We do need to take care of some issues. We will put this on the next meeting agenda. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about is how we can fund and what kind of power plants we're going to have to put backup generation at each of the lift stations. So that's going to be 4 lift stations that we're going to have to provide a power source. I don't know for how long this power source has to last. It could be 3 hours, in which case it's a small setup. It could be as easy as a generator, small one. But again, it's hard to say. We need more details.
When you are doing the power, are y'all also beginning to look at SCADA for the water and wastewater?
We certainly are. One of the conditions that you mentioned is that the new lift station be SCADA. I mean, that it at least give an alert and call somebody to say there's a problem. So it'll have an audible, a visual, and then an electronic call to somebody saying there's a problem. So it'll have 3 notifications. And we want to do that on all of the equipment that we have.
How expensive is it going to be to change that over to internet-based instead of phone-based? Is it that expensive?
It may not be. I couldn't give you real numbers, but based on the ZocNet, they're going to be handling our the new lift station at the end of Jackson. So they're running line to that. We will utilize the internet in that particular case, and I suspect that we're going to be also doing that because they're going to be branching out into the neighborhoods, and I have no doubt that if they were willing to do that for us at the lift station there and at our wastewater treatment plant, it should not be an issue. So I may investigate that with ZocNet and see what they can do.
It'd be nice if these guys could monitor it from home.
Sure.
Know very quick if there was a problem.
I gotcha. So our planning and zoning, moving on, I'm very happy to have participation. It's extremely nice that some people are willing to get involved. It's something that we need, and I'm happy for that. Our next CDB application, this is part of our agenda. I just wanted to throw out there 2 possibles, but Scott and I talked about this along with Frank. We really feel like that wastewater treatment and collection line in that particular area where we expect to see growth and development, we might want to pay attention to that. But there's also the flooding issues, which people don't complain about while it's not raining, but as soon as it rains, it becomes a huge problem. Then we have to look at, how we protect the neighborhoods. So, it's something I wanted to discuss, but we're open to ideas at this point. And that's my report.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Consent agenda item, discuss, consider possible action concerning proclamation April as Fair Housing Month requested by BSP Engineering Janet Shiggett.
Motion on consent agenda item A that we approve the proclamation April is Fair Housing Month.
Second?
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, all opposed by the same, seeing none, motion carries. I'm sorry, what? Okay. Consent agenda item B, discuss, consider possible action concerning proclamation declaring April 2018 National Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month.
Motion on consent agenda item B, that we proclaim April 28th as National Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month.
Second?
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. All opposed by the same, seeing none, motion carries. Regular agenda item A, discuss, consider possible action concerning Atmos rate review mechanism requested by Atmos Energy, Randy Hartford.
Mayor, Council, my name is Randy Hartford with Atmos Energy, office in Round Rock, Texas. Always a pleasure to be here in Granger. So I wanted to mention one item there's no action required, but I was talking to Andrew about it earlier. We just filed with the Railroad Commission, and you should receive that filing yesterday or today, I think. But we did file for a rate reduction. If you recall, back in December, the fair tax bill was passed in Congress, and what that did was it reduced the tax rate on corporations from 35% to 21%. And so we made calculations on that and had filed now to put in a rate reduction based on the tax savings of those. So that would be about $1.25 a month on a residential and $2.75 a month on commercial. So there's not any action required by the city on that, but we did want to make you aware that had been filed for that reduction to go into place. So the item on the agenda tonight is what we call is a rate review mechanism. And what that is we do an annual rate review process that is negotiated by two groups of cities that are represented by law firms that represent cities in relation to rate filings and any business we have with those cities. The city of Granger is not a member of either one of those. We have a favored nations agreement with the city of Granger, which says, whatever the best deal that we come up with those two intervening parties, then that's what we put in place with the city of Granger as well. We've been doing a rate review mechanism since 2008, and it's a process that we put into place to take the place of a state statute called GRIP, which stands for Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program. What that is a lot of aging infrastructure. Just like the city has aging infrastructure with water, wastewater, we do with natural gas pipes as well. We went in the early 2000s, and we have models built that look at what we have in the ground, how old it is, what the soil conditions are, how often you get leak calls on those, things like that. We put together a model, and we have a program that we go in and systematically replace aging infrastructure based on that model. To do that requires an annual investment, pretty substantial annual investment. In 2000, and I don't have 17's number, but 16, we did $600 million just in our division, about $1 billion system-wide. We have service in 8 states, but Texas is by far our largest. So in the early 2000s, they passed a statute called GRIP that allowed the natural gas companies to invest in that infrastructure and then annually file directly with the Railroad Commission to start earning a rate of return on that investment. And in Texas, the cities have original jurisdiction over rate making for natural gas. It's the only utility left, but that's the one that the city still has rate making. Most cities don't have the expertise or the desire to go into rate making negotiations at that level. But the cities, you still have that original jurisdiction. So generally in the past, we would file with the cities and ask for a rate increase to cover those investments in the infrastructure. We would negotiate with the cities. If we reached an agreement, that was great. If we couldn't, then you would deny our request. We would appeal that to the Railroad Commission. Then it would go into a full rate hearing called Statement of Intent. Those generally cost $10 million and up just for the actual legal expenses for putting on the case. The cities, represented by the two coalitions, didn't like the GRIP process because with that we filed directly at the commission. The commission heard our case, and then we would implement an increase if they agreed with that. And the cities felt like, well, you're taking us out of the process. We have original rate-making jurisdiction. So we said, how would you like to do it? So we sat down with them and said, instead of doing GRIP, how would you like us to look at that so that we can continue to invest in our system and improve our system? So we collectively came up with this rate review mechanism. And so what it does on GRIP, it looked at infrastructure investments only. So what was infrastructure, and that's it. And any increase would be added right to the customer charge. So if it was a $2 increase, it would increase that base customer charge by $2. If it was 58 cents, it'd be 58 cents. With the rate review mechanism, we don't look at only infrastructure. We completely open all of our books to both law firms, and we look at all of our O&M, we look at our return on equity, we look at the infrastructure, we look at all the investments and come up with an overall, what can we agree to as far as an adjustment in rates for that year. So that's what we do, and that's how we've been doing that since 2008. The rate review mechanism that you guys operated under was a 5-year agreement. We had one prior to that for 3 years. And so the last of that 5 years was last year. So we're asking the cities to approve another 5-year plan so that we can continue on that process, on that rate review mechanism.
Can we ask you some?
Absolutely, Eskel, yeah.
When you started, did you say that we currently have the option of the cheaper of the 2 different rate review mechanisms? Is that what you said?
No, you're under a favored nations agreement. So whatever is the best deal that we cut during that rate review process, that's what you will get. So whatever that is. There are 2 law firms that represent 2 groups of cities.
Okay.
And one is called the ATM, which is Atmos Texas Municipalities. Not related to us, they just have our name in their coalition name. And the other is the ACSC, which is Atmos Cities Steering Committee. They collectively represent about 200 cities. We have about 443 incorporated cities that we serve in our division. But the customer base between those coalitions is about close to 80%. So they have a lot of the larger cities that they represent. So they've been doing that for long. Both of those law firms, one is Alfred Herrera, Freddie Herrera, it's ATM Cities. The other is Jeffrey Gay with his law firm. They've been doing this for a long time, and that's what they do, is they represent cities with cities with utility companies. So if Encore Electric was looking for an increase in the wires, they generally represent the cities, with that as well. So that's what they do. The process works well because, it eliminates the GRIP. So it suspends that basically because we do this process instead. It saves a lot of dollars that typically when we spend those millions of dollars on a rate case, that's typically rolled back to the customer as well and a surcharge on the bill. So it saves those dollars. And it also limits how much goes to the customer charge. So where GRIP would say it's going to all go to customer charge, we actually limit that in the RRM filing to, it was 50 cents, and that's changing to no more than 60 cents in the base customer charge. Anything else would be in that consumption charge. So, I always like to tell people we're kind of like FedEx for natural gas. So the commodity itself, when you look at your bill, there's a factor on there that says GCR, which is gas cost recovery. That's the actual natural gas commodity, and that's a pass-through. So we don't mark that up. So whatever we pay for natural gas is what the customer pays for natural gas. So when you see, especially in the wintertime, when your bills get up there, this winter's been exceptionally cold, so they've been a little higher. Probably 70 to 80% of that bill is just the commodity, and we don't make any money on that. It's that base customer charge, and then there's a pretty small consumption charge. And that's how we pay our bills, that's how we keep the gas flowing, that's how we keep everything maintained and operated and replaced. And so we're FedEx. We just get paid to deliver it to you. And you pay, same thing we pay for the actual commodity itself. There are processes that validate all that as well, too, that go through public hearings to make sure that we're, managing that process as well as we can as well.
Anybody else have any questions?
Initially, you said you requested a rate reduction.
Yes.
Does that apply or is that passed on to the citizens of Granger?
Yeah, that'll go into effect in April. So what you said, your bill will be reduced beginning in April by $1.25 a month and $2.75 for commercial beginning in April. What we're requesting right now for approval is not an increase. It's simply to continue using that process that we've been using since 2008.
And how long is the process? You said that goes into effect in April? So our next review approving this mechanism, when does that review start?
We would file that with the two coalitions in April, and then we have until October. They would actually look at that, and it wouldn't, if there's an adjustment made, that wouldn't go into effect until October. Yeah.
So the way I understand this is the guidelines of designing the rate.
Right.
So by following the guidelines that we're currently under, that is why you're lowering the cost, because y'all are making a little bit extra because of the taxes, and it triggered.
Well, it's really.
Did it trigger this, or did
No,
y'all?
it's really.
We're still in the
it's-
rate review.
It's two different things.
It is, okay.
Yes, two
okay.
different things. The rate review mechanism is totally separate from the other.
It is,
It's just
okay.
they just happen to
They're
come
just
about
real
the same
close.
time.
Okay.
We've been working on the tax reduction since December when the tax laws were changed, but we had to wait until we had all the federal guidelines, and we had to wait till we had Railroad Commission guidelines on how they wanted us to do that adjustment for the taxes.
Okay.
So that was just filed saying we're going to reduce rates. This is simply a mechanism to annually review our rates to see if we're making what we should be making. So for instance, if we put $600 million in pipe in the ground, you're not asking to get $600 million back. You're just asking to earn a rate of return on that investment that's put in the
To
ground.
pay for it.
Yeah, so it's just getting a return. So I ask people sometimes, if you had $600 million to invest, and I said, now, I'm going to take that and I'm going to hold it for 12 to 18 months, you won't earn anything on it. But once I've had it for that long, then I'll start paying you a return. You never get this $600 million back, but I'll start paying you a return on it. And most go, I wouldn't make that investment. And that's kind of what we do every year is we invest a lot of money, and we invest that over the entire year. And then the following year, then we file with our cities and say, look, we made this investment. We just want to earn a rate of return on it. You know, you don't get, it's pipe in the ground. It's not money coming back.
And that's what you use the mechanism for.
Right. And so what it does is it looks at, I mean, it's the last full statement of intent rate case that went to the commission. They pretty much set, here's what you can earn, here's the maximum. So we're regulated, so you can never earn more than this. They say, here's what you can earn, here's how you can earn it, here's how we measure it, here's how, so those things are already in place, you know, through the last full-blown rate case. And what the review mechanism does is it takes those measures, and it says, now open your books, what's your total investment, O&M, returns, all that, and take that and apply it to what the measures are. Are you earning what you should be earning as a rate of return? And if not, you adjust it either up or down. Generally, it's up because we're making large investments to replace systems, so.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, we did this for 3 years and then for 5 years, and you're asking for another 5 years.
Right. And built into that is either party can say, we don't want to do this anymore with a 90-day written notice. So it's just a process that you're agreeing to do, but it's, I mean, there's a clause out.
And then the
Somebody
out
says-
clause would be going back to the GRIP mechanism. Is that correct?
Depending on the timing of it, we would either go back to GRIP or file a statement of intent. So depending on the timing, how you can put things together. So there are timelines that like you were talking about with the annexations, there are timelines with that too. You have a certain time frame you can file, certain time for, you know, comment, hearing back, and different people can take actions or parties. And so it depends on the timing of it. But yeah, it would be either a GRIP or a statement of intent.
So by agreeing to this type of agreement, we're basically saying we're going to follow what these law firms and Atmos Gas come to as an agreement each year for their rate.
Right. And you're well represented.
Okay, is there any advantage to committing or not committing to a 3-year versus a 5-year?
Well, it's just what we negotiated with the with the coalition already is to do a 5-year. And so we're trying to, where everybody stays on the same page. Yeah, so,
Not to overcomplicate it.
right.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 03122018 for the Atmos rate review mechanism.
Second.
All in favor?
Amend to 5 years, please.
Oh, would you be,
4 or 5 years.
Is this not for 5 years?
Needs to be said.
if you could just put it in the motion, that'll.
For 5 years.
Second that.
Second. All right. All in favor? All right. All opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Regular agenda item D, discuss, consider possible action concerning project to include in the 2018 CDBG application requested by BSP Engineering, Scott Murrah.
He's not going to be here tonight, but he did want us to talk about this and see where the council wants to go with our next application. So the application is due in April, and we have a little time to discuss what we want to do, and we want to hear from the citizens represented by the council.
Is this the GLO?
No, this is the the one that's issued and managed through Williamson County. So this is the one that we've been getting for the bridge, for the lift station. This is the same one. It's just for the next year's application.
And this is primarily for utilities. So,
Right.
and I think the
We
discussion.
can use it for utilities and roads.
Right.
Mhm.
We've been focusing on utilities, but I think the discussion for this is that manhole there by the sewer plant that's too small.
That's been covered.
The what?
That's been covered.
It's
That,
been-
that's going to be rolled over. We applied for a grant station, a lift station grant, and was awarded further downstream, like at the end of Old County Road. But we're moving that money since Frank has identified that it's a bigger problem at the wastewater treatment plant. We're actually going to be doing that one with that money. So we have the money for that.
So this is the one after that?
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Is Catherine Norris going to write CBDG grants in the future, or
Yeah.
beginning now, or?
Scott and I are already working on the next project. We've been talking about a couple of different things down here.
We really want to hand off the CDBG grant process, but he has all of the data collected, and he also has the relationship with Sally Bardwell, so we need a smooth transition, so we are
He's gonna help transition.
over. We have had this discussion, and I think we're in agreement that he just needs to be our engineer, and we will handle all of the grant administration in-house.
Good. So, project, which is it to be then?
Well, the first one that I'd put on my administrator's report is the one that I think we need to focus on. And I know Frank doesn't like to talk, but Frank, I think I need you in this. We had talked about that after we did the lift station at the end of Jackson, we identified that slope and the rusting pipe that's in the creek, and it had caused some problems. There had been some backups down there, and that's when we discovered it, that it was sagging right there and causing it in the creek. If you go and look at it, it looks like a little U. The water is, with stuff in it, it's getting clogged right there. And then we started to investigate further and found that that pipe was starting to fail. So it serves how many homes, Frank?
Right, currently it's serving about 6 homes, and this is the one I want to dedicate to the new neighborhood. That way, if we run down Alligator, we cross over the waterway, you'll be delivering into our new lift station, which is equipped with the grinding pumps, which will handle the water flow no problem. And I'll have the new one at the wastewater plant that will process it. So that's why we wanted to redo that line.
I think
so
we
that
can
they
get
have
the repair of that particular line for those 6 homes and the extension to the newest subdivision included, all-inclusive in the grant, so that we wouldn't have to pay for that.
So, and I know it's impossible to predict this at this point, but the average grants running us, we typically are getting about $350,000. If we have money left over, if it doesn't use all that, do we have something else that we can use?
We could do 2 things with it. We could find another project, or we can roll it over into the next grant.
We do have the smoke testing that we.
That's right, we do.
We do have we need to roll those funds for many things.
Okay.
We are going to have to spend some money. Like I said, it's going to go onto the April agenda, but the TCQ wants us to do a smoke test, so we have places we can spend the money.
Okay. And I presume smoke tests are expensive.
They're not cheap. We have to do our entire system. That's every manhole.
Not all at once, mind you, but it has to be scheduled. They'll
I
do
got
a
you.
section and a section and a section.
So,
So do we need to outline in this motion that initially, we need to replace that particular line, on Jackson Street and then, pursue storm drains on Lamb in that order? Is that what you want in the motion?
Right. I would like to see that. Before we identified that particular problem, my primary objective would have been to work on a storm drain system for Lamb Street, but priorities have to be made. And now that we've identified a new problem that we definitely need to fix, it's not going to go away, and it is a problem. I mean, it's one of those where we flood every so many years versus we have wastewater every day.
So that storm drain could be as much as 300,000?
The storm drain's going to be more expensive than that.
I meant the sagging rusting line.
Yeah, that's going to be, how much would you estimate for the extension and the replacement of that line?
We're approximately 180 feet crossing the waterway, and then the distance from Alligator and then crossing. So we'd have to, and we'd probably, this time around, would probably rebore so that we could put the line under there properly. And oh yeah, a cased line for sure, because it would be sewage.
the casing is very expensive for,
But
because we've ran across this before. I can't remember the exact cost, but it was very expensive.
If you'll remember the boring that we had to do right before I got here under Highway 95 and the railroad, it's going to be similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll motion on regular agenda item 5B that our CBDG 2018 project application begin with working on the sagging line, collection line at the end of Jackson Street, and then if there's anything left over to pursue storm drains on Lamb.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, all opposed by the same?
Before we move on,
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
does that motion cover extension?
Extension
if
to what?
needed? The sagging line and extension of that
The
sewer line?
continuation of the sewer line up to the...
Yes, that's,
The whole
she
thing.
said
Would
up
that
to
cover it?
Alligator. She said up to Alligator. Is that correct?
you may want to inclusive Alligator, because it's going to go quite a ways down Alligator.
Okay, amend motion to include Alligator.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, all opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries. Regular agenda item C, discuss, consider possible action concerning planning and zoning committee appointments requested by Andrew.
Well, first I want to thank Mark Harwell for being here. We had only had the two applicants, which was Robert Snelson and Mike Anderson.
And Mark Harwood.
Sure, if you want me to. I have confirmation of 6 people, or a hard yes. Their applications should be in before the next meeting, if you're having one next Monday, or?
I think we don't have any more.
So,
We're good until next month.
All right, well, I found 6 willing and able people
Okay,
to have submitted to you guys for approval.
all right.
Cool. So we should,
You want to name them?
if you want them.
Please.
I have Jessica Repa, Mike Anderson, Cole Sessoms, myself, Chelsea Ellison, and Robert Snelson.
I don't know if you're interested in another name. I know Justin Finch is supposed to be sending you an application.
Okay. Yeah, we'll basically take them on, and you guys can approve 5 or 7 or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's up to
And
you
I mean,
guys.
yeah, I think if we have the volunteers, I kind of like the 7, but.
I did take a couple kicking and screaming, so if they don't have to do it.
Okay.
And you are willing to serve for the next year, correct?
If you guys approve me, I'm going to go through the same process.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys have lost my application from 10 years ago. Just,
Okay.
you've moved twice since then.
I have a question on this item.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we not, based upon the names that he's given, do we not need to give some freedom for city administrator and mayor to approve if these applications come in, because we don't want to wait until April for y'all to actually have a committee.
Yeah, I agree.
Or, well.
Or go ahead
are
and
you-
appoint these people now.
Are you
Well,
okay
we
with
need
that,
their,
Monica,
we need
or-
their application
Or would
first.
you prefer to wait? What's your opinion? Would you rather wait, or?
No, whatever y'all want to do.
Okay.
I make a motion that based upon the names that have been submitting, pending applications being turned in, that they be given to the city administrator and mayor to approve based upon the applications.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed by the same? Seeing none, the motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
All right.
Second?
Are all in favor? All opposed by the same? Seeing none, the motion carries. We're dismissed.